So, Jeff, this is a bit of a surprise to have you here at Kapow. What are you doing here?
I'm quite excited to be here. I moved to London basically for the next year. I got here 5 days ago, and I was having dinner with Mark Millar. And he said, "What's going on with the Kick-Ass 2 panel for Kapow?" And I was like, "I didn't know there was one, Mark." He said, "Well, there has to be one. Can you come on down on Saturday?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I'm here, and just did the panel with Gareth and Nacho, and it was fantastic, and it was great to meet them. So I couldn't be happier.
Now, the panel was a director's panel, wasn't it? As you said, you were on there with Gareth and Nacho. And it said in the kind of explanation what the panel was about, it said what it takes to be an amazing director in Hollywood. So, what does it take to be an amazing director in Hollywood?
I have no idea. We actually had quite a laugh about that before the panel, because I said, I know what it takes to be an adequate director in Hollywood, maybe even slightly above average, but amazing. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I am very fortunate in that on Kick-Ass 2 I'm working with an amazing director. Matthew Vaughn is producing the film, and I wrote it and I'm directing it. So maybe I can glean a little from him through the process.
Now, you mentioned Kick-Ass 2 there, which I was going to ask you about next, so thank you very much for a brilliant segue. Tell us anything that you can about it.
I can't tell you much other than we are making the movie. We start in September. It is very much a sequel to the first film, but also an adaptation of Mark's books, Kick-Ass 2. And we push things further, in every sense. What I loved about the first film and what Matthew did was it was so emotional and felt very honest. And I think we push that even further in the second film, but then we also do what Mark does in the comics, where he sort of pushes the boundaries of the superhero genre, and we do that as well in the second film. So I think people who love the first film are going to be quite pleased with the second film.
So who are we talking about in terms of cast and who's returning characters for Kick-Ass 2?
Well, no one is confirmed yet, but I will say that the script is very much an ensemble piece that focuses on Dave, the Kick-Ass character, and Chris, Red Mist, who becomes a supervillain in this movie and changes his name from Red Mist to the Motherfucker. Am I allowed to say that at this interview? And Mindy, who's Hit Girl. And just as she did in the Kick-Ass 2 book, she gives up being Hit Girl. The difference is in the movie, we're going to spend a lot of time with her and see what it means when you take a real superhero, and that's what Hit Girl is, and she tries to be a regular kid, sort of the opposite of what Dave did in the first film.
Now, you talk about obviously adapting the comic books here. How kind of involved in that side of the process are you, and how do you envisage it? How do you envisage it going?
Well, I wrote the script, so I worked closely with Matthew and with Mark, and would constantly be emailing them and asking questions. But for me, it was really about finding an intersection between a sequel to the first film and an adaptation of the comics, because if you know the comics well, the first film takes some liberties, right? So if here's the first comic and here's the first film, and then the second series of the books were a sequel to the first series, I just sort of find this intersection, right, where we were creating an honest sequel to the first film, but we're also adapting the books. So it's challenging. But I loved it, and I loved the characters, and so I had a really good time doing it. And actually, it came to me quite quickly. I think I wrote it in about 6 weeks. Did a couple weeks of work with Matthew, and that's the draft we're shooting.
Now, how is it stepping into the shoes of Matthew Vaughn and Jane Goldman as the writer and director of Kick-Ass 2?
It's quite intimidating because they are so incredibly talented, but they created this fantastic foundation which I get to build off of. So, in a weird way, I get to benefit from their talent and all their hard work and take credit for much of it. And as I mentioned, Matthew is intimately involved with Kick-Ass 2 as a producer. I speak to him for hours every day. He's a filmmaker's dream when it comes to a producer, because he has empowered me to make my movie, but at the same time, Kick-Ass is his baby, so he's very involved. And we just have a fantastic collaboration, and so in a weird way too, even though he didn't write the screenplay and he's not directing it, he has his fingerprints all over it.
Now, how much of a game changer do you think this film's going to be for you?
Well, I hope I become fabulously rich and famous afterwards. No, I don't know. I mean, look, I've been doing this long enough. I've been in the film business for 10 years that that all I really want out of a project is the opportunity to tell a story that I love and I care about that reaches the largest audience possible. And so if we achieve that with Kick-Ass 2, I will be ecstatic.
And how are you finding it now that you're in Lundy? So you've been here for 5 days and there's many more to come yet.
Yeah, I'm basically moving here for a year because we're going to shoot the movie here and post it here. It's a British film, but an American story, and I think that's one of the reasons why the first film works so well, because it's referencing all this sort of iconography that we associate with sort of American superheroes, but it had a very British sensibility, and so I'm enjoying trying to recreate that for the sequel, and so I think being here is a big part of that, and it's a little scary moving to a new city for so long, but again, we have the same family on the first film. A lot of the crew is returning, and because they're so loyal to Matthew, and obviously he attracts the best and the brightest in the business, and they've welcomed me with open arms, so I'm so far so good.
What would you ideally want to be doing next?
Kick-Ass 3, of course. No, I mean, truthfully, to be completely candid, about a year ago, I was talking to my girlfriend, and I had a couple projects that were supposed to get made and then didn't get off the ground, and I was quite frustrated, which is all part of, working in Hollywood. And my girlfriend said to me, if, a year from now, if you could be making any kind of movie, what kind of movie would that be? And I described a movie that is pretty much Kick-Ass 2. So in many ways, that's a hard question to answer because it's already come true for me. I'm living my dream now, making this movie.
Fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. And we cannot wait to see Kick-Ass 2, it goes without saying, and lots of luck for the filming of it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.